The next storyteller and I met as cast members in a show called Listen to Your Mother. I have been lucky to call her friend since the moment we met. She is so very kind and witty, and her ability to write humor is something that I envy a great deal. Look for her first book, Wake Up Goldilocks, Somebody Has Been Screaming in My Head, to debut later this year. Ladies and gentlemen, reading The Whole Truth and Nothing But the Truth, So Help Me 17 magazine, my friend, Lisa Samet.
"17 magazine quiz, question number 1. You know that your friend's crush isn't interested in her, but she flirts like a maniac when she's around him. When she says she's planning on asking the guy out, you, A, truthfully explain to her that you know her crush isn't interested in her. B, hint to her not to get her hopes up because things don't always work out in life. C, decide not to hurt her feelings and say nothing. D, tell her she's a fool. As I sat in the dentist office waiting room, pathetically losing myself in 17 magazines, What Kind of Friend Are You quiz, I contemplated the quiz for a moment. Granted, I was at least 30 years older than the magazine's key demographic, but it was the only magazine on the table. From my perspective, the answer was either black or white. There's always a choice to be made. Either say absolutely nothing or tell the absolute truth. So question 1 was easy. If it were me, I would tell my friend the absolute truth. I would tell her point blank that her crush was not interested in her. I would tell her the absolute truth with no fear of consequence, because that is what good, open, honest friends are supposed to do. Well, 17 magazine did not appreciate my honesty. They labeled me a fair-weather, judgmental friend. I would soon come to realize that friendships and relationships aren't black and white. They're a very complicated gray, and you don't always make choices that you think you would make. I also learned that 17 magazine is no expert on friendship, so I'll no longer rely on a teen magazine for life advice. Let me tell you why. It all began when Jen and I met at work and something instantly clicked. We laughed at the same jokes and despised the same coworkers. We were stuck in suburban employment hell, and it was a match made in heaven. We confided in each other and became inseparable. Our friendship continued to grow despite the fact that I left the firm and she stayed on. We continued to meet for lunch at a pub called Our Place. Our lunches gradually progressed from sandwiches and salads to wine and salad, to just salad for me and just wine for her. When I'd walk in, she was usually already finishing a glass and reordering. Granted, I don't remember noticing any of this at the time, but somehow, I think I must have. Somehow, I know I must have. Sometimes she'd say she wasn't hungry and was drinking her lunch. I thought that line was hysterical and marveled how she could return to work and function after a couple glasses of wine. We'd spend our lunches gossiping, telling stories about old coworkers, and I remember that feeling you get from just hanging out and laughing with a really good friend. I missed her. I didn't feel the same closeness with anyone at my new office. I never wanted our lunches at Our Place to end. I remember the day that I first began to notice that something was different. It had been a while since I'd seen her. There was no other way to describe it, but she looked comfortable, and not in a good way. She looked as if she'd been there for a while. Her face was puffy, and she was noticeably slurring her words. For the first time ever, our conversation seemed forced. She began name-dropping new friends she was hanging out with, and I knew none of them. I felt this longing need to hang on to our friendship exactly like it was before. I was worried about her. I was worried about us. Nothing had really changed, but everything had. There was a choice I had to make that day. Say absolutely nothing to her, or tell the absolute truth. I said absolutely nothing. Not long after that, I ran into a mutual friend who had seen Jen sitting alone having a drink at Our Place. Jen had told her she was waiting for me and I was late. It wasn't true. But without skipping a beat, I did what BFFs of blossoming alcoholics do. I lied for her. It was the first of many lies I told for her. That night I was sure that I was going to call her and confront her. There was a choice I had to make. Say absolutely nothing or tell the absolute truth. I said absolutely nothing. These episodes continued for much longer than I'd like to admit, and still I hung on. Each time, like clockwork, I made the choice. I said absolutely nothing. My breaking point came one night when her worried husband called to check on her. She hadn't been with me, but I said she just left. I was now her alibi, and it was quite a responsibility. Like the perfect friend I thought I was, I picked her up with a strong coffee in hand and drove her home as she blathered on that the reason she was tipsy was because she didn't eat dinner and it went right to her head. I know what you're thinking. I was now officially her accomplice. I was Thelma to her Louise. I felt sick to my stomach that I was caught up in her downward spiral and hadn't done anything to help her. Still, as I drove her home, there was a choice I had to make. Say absolutely nothing or tell the absolute truth. I said absolutely nothing. But I spent the next sleepless night anxiously tossing and turning as I slowly but surely came to the realization that I had let my selfish fear of losing her take over. The next day, now perfectly calm and resigned to say what I had come there to say, I walked into our place, and I finally told my friend the absolute truth. And even though I practice it, what I said came out pretty cliche. You need help. I've had to lie for you. You shouldn't be drinking like this. You've changed. I don't even know your friends anymore. I don't know you. And finally, I'm telling you the truth because I'm your best friend. If I don't tell you, no one will. Well, I'll never forget her reaction. I saw an expression on her face that I'd never seen before. If it was sadness or guilt or even remorse, I would have recognized it. It wasn't. It still sends shivers down my spine. With gratitude, she reached over to me, hugged me, held me close, and told me that I was the best friend she could possibly ever have, thanking me for being honest with her and trying to help her when no one else had come through for her. I'm absolutely lying. She actually said, "Fuck you." Not a sweet little toned down F you, but rather a long, drawn out, multi-syllable major, "Fuck you." Then she put money down on the bar and she stumbled out of my life. To this day, she's never answered a text or a phone call from me. The upside is that in her hasty exit from my life, she forgot to unfriend me, so I sometimes still stalk her on Facebook. It looks like her marriage broke up. She isn't working at the place we used to work, and I don't recognize a soul in any of her pictures. I don't recognize her. She must have a long story to tell, but whoever she's telling it to, she's no longer telling me. I want you to know that I miss her terribly, but I regret nothing. I don't agree with 17 magazine. My telling her does not make me a fair-weather, judgmental friend. In the end, there was a choice I had to make. Say absolutely nothing or tell the absolute truth. I finally made the right choice. I told the absolute truth. I had to be brave enough to be the friend I needed to be, and she had to ultimately be braver. I still have faith one day she will be. 17 magazine quiz. Question number 2. In your opinion, good friends, A, are true treasures, B, come and go, C, are hard to find, D, are hard to keep. My answer, all of the above. Thank you.